The meeting room was massive. It floated in space, far from any sun or planet. Inside, creatures from 47 different worlds sat in their special chairs. Some breathed oxygen. Some breathed methane. Some did not breathe at all. They were the Galactic Council, and they had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. John Mitchell sat in the human section. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple black suit that looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor of the other ambassadors. He had been Earth's voice in this room for 12 years now. He had learned to sit quietly and wait his turn to speak. The chairman was a creature called Clickchar. He looked like a giant insect, taller than two humans standing on each other's shoulders. His voice clicked and buzzed when he talked. A machine translated his words into sounds that humans could understand. "The next matter is the human request for medical supplies," Clickchar announced. His tone made it clear he found this boring. John stood up slowly. He held a data pad in his hands. "Thank you, Chairman. The colony on Titan is facing a plague. We have lost 4,000 people in the last month. We need antiviral medications and genetic sequencers to develop a cure. The supplies exist in council warehouses. We are asking for emergency access." A creature that looked like a giant lizard laughed. His name was Zethral, and he commanded the Vrex military forces. 4,000 deaths? That is nothing. My people lose more than that in training accidents each year. This is not an emergency. Other council members nodded or made sounds of agreement. John felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. He had learned not to show emotion in this room. "With respect, Commander, those are human lives. To us, they matter." "Then handle it yourselves," said a glowing ball of light. This was one of the Lumini energy beings who thought they were the wisest species in the galaxy. "You humans are always asking for help. Perhaps this is a lesson in self-reliance." Clickchar waved one of his long arms. "The request is denied." Next matter, John sat down. He wrote a note on his data pad. "Request denied. Date, March 15th. Reason, Council considers human deaths insignificant." He had many notes like this. His files were full of them. The meeting continued for 6 more hours. John listened to debates about trade routes and border disputes. He listened to long speeches about honor and tradition. Nobody asked his opinion. When the session finally ended, he gathered his things and walked to his small office in the station's human section. His assistant was waiting for him. Her name was Claire Hughes, a young woman with red hair and bright green eyes. She had been working for him for 2 years now. "How did it go?" she asked, though her face said she already knew the answer. "They said no. Again." John put his data pad on the desk and sat down heavily. "Contact Dr. Lisa Morgan on Titan. Tell her she will have to synthesize the cure with what she has. No help is coming." Claire nodded and started typing. John looked out the window at the stars. He thought about the 4,000 people who had died. He thought about the families crying for help. He thought about how the council had laughed. This was not the first time. It was never the first time. 2 years ago, human merchant ships had been attacked by pirates in the Outer Rim. 20 ships destroyed. 300 people killed. John had presented evidence, tracking data, and identification of the pirate bases. The council had called it an internal matter and told him to handle it himself. 3 years before that, a human science team had discovered signs of intelligent life in the Abyss sector. The council had sent their own team, taken credit for the discovery, and never mentioned the human scientists who had done the actual work. 5 years before that, Earth had asked permission to expand into 3 uninhabited star systems. The request had been denied because a council member species might want those systems someday. Maybe, in the future. No specific plans, just the possibility. John had files full of these incidents. 15 years of them, stretching back before he had become ambassador. His predecessor had kept records too, and the ambassador before her. The pattern was always the same. Humans asked. The council said no. Or the council took credit. Or the council simply ignored the request entirely. But humans kept working. They kept trading, kept researching, keeping fixing things, because that was what humans did. They saw problems and they solved them. They saw broken things and they fixed them, even when nobody thanked them, even when nobody noticed. John opened his private files. He looked at reports from human colonies across council space. Reports the council never read. Numbers the council never checked. Human engineers maintained 63% of the station's life support systems. Human technicians repaired communication arrays on 40 worlds. Human doctors staffed emergency clinics in 30 systems. Human scientists published more research papers than any 3 other species combined. But in council meetings, humans were treated like children. Useful children, maybe, but children nonetheless. Species to be tolerated and occasionally patted on the head. Never species to be respected. 6 months ago, something had changed. Dr. Lisa Morgan, working on a science vessel called the Pathfinder, had discovered a cure for something called the Bleeding Death. This disease was killing millions of Kentari people. The council's own scientists had been trying to cure it for 10 years. They had failed. Lisa and her team had worked for 6 months with almost no sleep. They had tested 5,000 different compounds. They had run 10,000 simulations. They had finally created a cure that worked. It was brilliant. It was effective. It saved millions of lives. The council had taken the credit. They had rewritten the reports to say it was a council effort. They had given medals to their own scientists. They had mentioned the human team in one short paragraph at the end of a very long document. When John had objected, Clickchar had dismissed him. Your species contributed, Ambassador Mitchell, as did many others. The cure belongs to the council. This meeting is over. John had stood there in the empty chamber after everyone left. He had stood there for a long time thinking. Then he had gone back to his office and started making calls. Quiet calls. Private calls. Calls to Earth, calls to human colonies. Calls to human scientists and engineers and doctors scattered across council space. Now, sitting in his office 3 months later, John opened a new file. The file was labeled Exodus Protocol. Inside were lists. Lists of names. Lists of ships. Lists of coordinates. Lists of dates. Everything was ready. It had taken 15 years to prepare, though he had not known that was what he was doing until 6 months ago. 15 years of keeping records. 15 years of documenting every insult, every dismissal, every theft of credit. 15 years of quietly asking himself, what would happen if humans just left? Now he was going to find out. He sent a message. One short message, encrypted and coded. It went to 300 human leaders across council space. The message said only 3 words. Begin Phase 1. Then John Mitchell started packing his office. He had a ship to catch. Dr. Lisa Morgan packed her research notes into 3 small cases. Each case was locked with codes that only she knew. Her laboratory on the Kentari homeworld had been her home for 8 months. Now she was leaving it behind. Dr. Morgan, please reconsider, said the Kentari medical director. His name was something humans could not pronounce, so they called him Director Blue because of his skin color. Your work here is not finished. The cure distribution needs supervision. You have the cure, Lisa said without looking up from her packing. Your people know how to manufacture it. You do not need me anymore. But the mutations, the possible variants, the long-term studies on you will handle it. Lisa closed the last case and finally looked at him. She was a short woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they were firm. Director, you have good scientists. Trust them. She walked out of the laboratory. Her team followed her. 6 humans all carrying their personal belongings and their research data. They left behind the equipment, the lab space, the apartment the Kentari had provided. They took only what belonged to them. The shuttle was waiting at the spaceport. As they lifted off, Lisa looked down at the city below. She had saved millions of lives down there. She had worked until her hands shook from exhaustion. She had solved a problem the council could not solve in 10 years, and the council had taken credit for it. She did not feel angry anymore. She just felt tired and done. In orbit, the science vessel Pathfinder waited, but something was different. The ship had a new escort. 3 human warships that had not been there before. Big ships with heavy armor and weapons that gleamed in the sunlight. Pathfinder, this is Captain Greg Turner of the Guardian. We will be escorting you back to Earth. Set your course and we will match. Lisa strapped into the captain's chair. Guardian, this is Dr. Morgan. Course is set. Ready to jump on your mark. Copy that, Pathfinder. All ships jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched and bent. Then they were gone, jumping through space faster than light could travel, leaving the Kentari homeworld behind, leaving council space behind. They were not the only ones leaving. On the trade station called Commerce Hub, human merchant Captain Danny Chen was finishing his last delivery. His cargo ship, the Lucky Dragon, had just unloaded 50 tons of medical supplies. The station master, a furry creature called a Plix, was checking the inventory. Everything is here, Captain Chen. Your payment has been transferred. Will you be taking the return cargo of Plix Textiles? No, Danny said.
I am canceling all future contracts.
The lucky dragon is leaving council space. The Plix's ears went flat against his head. Canceling? But we have agreements. We have schedules. Read the fine print. There is a clause for voluntary termination with 30 days' notice. I am giving you that notice now. In writing. Danny handed him a data pad with the formal cancellation documents. But why? Has our service been unsatisfactory? Danny looked at the small creature. The Plix had always been fair to him, always paid on time, always treated him with respect. Your service has been fine. This is not about you. This is about the council. He left before the Plix could ask more questions. As his ship pulled away from the station, he could see other human vessels doing the same thing. 5 human cargo ships all departing, all heading for the edge of council space. They had all received the same message. Begin Phase 1. On Station Harmony, where the Galactic Council met, Claire Hughes was cleaning out the human ambassador's office. She packed files, personal items, and official documents. Everything was sorted carefully. Nothing was forgotten. A Lumini representative drifted into the office. It looked like a ball of golden light with no solid form. Where is Ambassador Mitchell? The Lumini asked. Its voice sounded like music. The ambassador has been recalled to Earth for consultations, Claire said. She kept packing while she talked. When will he return? I do not know. There are matters that require his input. Trade disputes, colony requests, the usual business. You will have to handle them without him. Claire sealed a box and marked it with a number. The Lumini's light flickered. Is something wrong? Has Earth expressed dissatisfaction with council proceedings? Claire stopped packing. She looked directly at the glowing being. Ambassador Mitchell filed formal complaints for 15 years. He presented evidence of unfair treatment. He requested assistance during emergencies. He asked for respect. The council ignored all of it. That is standard diplomatic process. All requests are considered carefully. No, Claire said quietly. They are not. They are dismissed. And now Earth is done asking. She picked up her last box and walked out. Behind her, the Lumini drifted in the empty office, its light dimming with confusion. All across council space, humans were leaving. Not in panic. Not in anger. Just leaving. Human scientists at research stations packed their notes and departed. Human engineers at power plants finished their shifts and did not come back. Human doctors at clinics said goodbye to their patients and boarded shuttles. They did not explain. They did not argue. They just left, the council noticed, but slowly. It took 2 weeks before anyone realized how many humans had gone. It took 3 weeks before they understood it was not random. It was organized. Commander Zethral, the Vrex military leader, was the first to call an emergency meeting. He stood in the council chamber with his scales showing stress patterns. The humans are evacuating their colonies in council space, he announced. My scouts report 17 human worlds are now empty. The people are gone. The buildings are sealed. The defense systems are active, but no one is home. Perhaps they have internal political troubles, suggested a council member who looked like a walking flower. Human governments are unstable. This is probably a temporary relocation. For 3 months? Zethral's voice was sharp. Every human diplomat has resigned. Every human merchant has canceled their contracts. Every human scientist has left their post. This is not random political instability. This is organized withdrawal. Clickchar's mandibles clicked nervously. Have we received any communication from Earth? Any explanation? Only automated messages, said the station's communication officer. They all say the same thing. Humanity is withdrawing from council space. Do not approach Earth or human colonies. This is your only warning. A warning? Clickchar's voice rose. They dare to warn us? We are the Galactic Council. We do not take warnings from a minor member species. Perhaps we should ask why they are leaving, said Senator Helen Cross. She was one of the avian Pleiadians covered in gray feathers. Her species was known for careful thinking. What did we do to cause this reaction? We did nothing, Clickrell declared. They are overreacting to standard council procedure. All species face similar treatment. It is not personal, is it not? Helen pulled up data on her screen. I have been reviewing the records. In the last 5 years alone, humans submitted 147 formal requests to the council. Only 8 were approved. The rest were denied or ignored. That is normal, another council member said. We cannot approve every request. But the approval rate for other species is 42%, Helen continued. For humans, it is 5%. Why such a difference? Silence filled the chamber. No one had a good answer. "We should send a diplomatic mission to Earth," Klikchar finally said. "We will remind them of their obligations under Council law. We will negotiate their return." "And if they refuse?" Helen asked. "They will not refuse. They need us more than we need them." 3 days later, a Council fleet of 30 ships jumped into Earth's solar system. They came in peace, flying diplomatic flags. They came to talk, to negotiate, to restore order. What they found waiting for them made every captain's blood run cold. Hundreds of human warships. Not patrol boats, not scouts. Warships that made even Vrek's dreadnoughts look small. Ships bristling with weapons that scans could not fully identify. Ships arranged in perfect defensive formation around Earth and its moon. One human ship moved forward. It was huge, larger than anything the Council had seen humans build. Its name was painted on the side, Guardian. A message came through. A human voice, calm and firm. "This is Captain Greg Turner. You are not welcome here. Turn back now." The Council fleet commander was a dignified Lumini named Bright Thought. He sent a return message: "We come in peace. We wish only to speak with Earth's government. Earth's government has nothing to say to you. Leave. The Council requests. The Council has no authority here. You have 10 minutes to begin your jump calculations. After that, we will consider your presence an act of war." The Council fleet turned around. They jumped away without another word. They had come to deliver warnings and demands. Instead, they had received their own warning, and they had obeyed it. Back on Station Harmony, the Council gathered in emergency session. Every representative was present. For the first time in their long, proud history, they felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The Kentari were dying again. 3 months after Dr. Lisa Morgan left their world, the bleeding death came back. The cure that had saved millions of lives stopped working. The disease had changed, mutated, evolved into something new, and the Kentari scientists could not fix it. Director Blue stood in his laboratory, staring at test results that made no sense. His hands were shaking. Outside his window, he could see the hospitals filling up again. The death counts were rising. 50 people a day, then 100, then 500. "We need to contact Dr. Morgan," he said to his assistant. "We need the humans to come back." "We have tried, Director. Earth does not answer our messages. The human embassy is empty. There is no one to contact." "Then contact the Council. They must force the humans to help us." His assistant looked at him with sad eyes. "The Council says they cannot. The humans have withdrawn from Council authority. They do not answer to anyone anymore." Director Blue sat down heavily. His people were dying because he could not do what one human woman had done. He had spent his whole life studying medicine. He had earned the highest honors his world could give. But he could not solve this problem. Lisa Morgan had solved it in 6 months. The Kentari were not the only ones suffering. The problems were spreading across Council space like cracks in broken glass. On the trade station commerce hub, cargo was piling up in the warehouses. Mountains of goods with nowhere to go. The Plick station master walked through the storage bays with growing horror. Before the humans left, 40% of all cargo ships had been human vessels. They had been reliable, efficient, and fair in their pricing. Now they were gone, and the remaining ships could not handle the load. "We have medical supplies for the outer rim that are 3 weeks overdue," his logistics officer reported. "We have food shipments for the Kentari that are rotting in storage. We have construction materials for 6 different worlds that cannot be delivered because we have no ships available. Contact other shipping companies. Offer higher pay." "We have, sir. Everyone is overwhelmed. The Vrex commercial fleet is refusing new contracts because they are already behind schedule. The Lumine transport network has doubled its prices and still cannot meet demand." The station master looked at the piles of cargo. Somewhere in those boxes were medicines that people needed, food that families were waiting for, materials that would build homes and schools and hospitals, all sitting in his warehouse, useless. "The humans made it look so easy," he said quietly. "We never realized how much work they were doing." On a Lumini energy collection station, the lights were dimming. The Lumini needed energy to survive, and they gathered it from special crystals that came from the deep nebula. Human ships had transported 90% of those crystals. Now the supply chain was broken. Bright morning, the station administrator was trying to ration energy for the first time in 200 years. She had to decide which facilities would get power and which would go dark. Schools or hospitals, homes or factories. "How long before the next crystal shipment arrives?" she asked. 6 months, her aide replied. The non-human shipping companies say they need time to modify their ships for nebula navigation. The humans had special training for that route, 6 months. Bright Morning's people could not survive 6 months on rationed energy. They would start to fade, to lose their coherence, to simply stop existing. Contact the council. This is an emergency. The council says to manage with our reserves, and we have no reserves. We never needed reserves before. The aide had no answer to that. On Station Harmony, the council's own problems were multiplying. The massive space station had been built over centuries. Millions of beings lived there. Thousands of systems kept them alive, and those systems were failing. The life support system in Sector 7 shut down for 3 hours. 200 beings nearly died before engineers got it working again. The communication array started producing strange errors, sending messages to wrong destinations. The gravity generators in Sector 12 fluctuated, making people float and then slam back down. The chief engineer, a methane-breathing Grothan named Solid Worker, was working 20-hour days trying to fix everything. I do not understand, he told his team. These systems were maintained regularly. They should not be failing like this. A junior engineer pulled up maintenance records. Sir, the humans did most of the deep maintenance. They worked on the core systems, the backup systems, the redundant safety systems. We other species only did surface repairs. That cannot be true. We have capable engineers. Yes, sir. But look at the records. 70% of all core system maintenance was logged by human engineers. They did the difficult work, the dangerous work, the work that required understanding how all the systems connected to each other. Solid Worker looked at the records. His face went dark with shame. We took their work for granted. Yes, sir. Can we learn to do what they did? Eventually, sir. But it will take years to understand all the systems they maintained, and we do not have years. We have weeks, maybe months before something critical fails. The meeting chamber of the Galactic Council was full. Every representative was present. Many looked frightened. Some looked angry. All looked confused. Senator Helen Cross stood at the central podium. She had been working for weeks, compiling data, checking records, calculating numbers. Now she had to tell the council the truth they did not want to hear. Humans represented 3% of the council's total population. She began. Her voice was clear and calm. But they performed 28% of all scientific research. They published 41% of all new medical studies. They maintained 39% of all infrastructure systems across council space. She pulled up graphs and charts on the large displays, numbers that could not be argued with. They operated 40% of all cargo vessels. They trained 60% of all emergency medical technicians. They wrote 51% of all technical manuals. They designed or improved 70% of Rex military hardware. The chamber was silent. Even Commander Zethral had stopped objecting. We did not lose a minor member species, Helen continued. We lost the foundation that our entire civilization was built on. And we never noticed because they did their work quietly. Without demanding credit or recognition, they just did the work that needed doing. How is that possible? Asked a council member. How could one species contribute so much without us knowing? Because we did not want to know, Helen said simply. We convinced ourselves that we were superior, that we were teaching the humans that they needed us. The truth is exactly opposite. We needed them desperately, and we treated them terribly. Clickchar's mandibles clicked rapidly. The chairman looked older than he had 3 months ago. What do we do now? We are already doing it, Helen replied. We are failing. Trade is collapsing. Infrastructure is breaking. Medical care is declining. Species are dying. And it will get worse before it gets better. Because we cannot replace what the humans did. Not quickly. Maybe not ever. Commander Zethral stood up. The proud warrior's scales were dull, his posture defeated. My fleet is combat ineffective. Without human maintenance, our weapons systems are failing. When pirates attacked the colony at Border's Edge last week, our ships could not get their targeting computers online. The colony fell in 4 hours. 300,000 Vrex died while we watched helplessly. He looked around the chamber. I mocked the humans. I called them weak. I laughed at their short lifespans and emotional nature. I was wrong. They were not weak. They were holding us up, and I was too proud to see it. Other representatives began to speak, sharing their own disasters. The Pleiadians could not maintain their atmospheric processors. The Grothan mining operations were shutting down because human-designed safety systems no longer worked. The Flower People's agricultural worlds were facing crop failures because human geneticists had been solving their pest problems. Every species had a story. Every species had a crisis, and they all led back to the same cause. The humans were gone. "We must contact Earth," Clickchar said. "We must apologize. We must beg them to return." "We tried," Helen reminded him. "They sent our fleet away." "They will not speak to us?" "Then we try harder. We send ambassadors with offers of reparations of equal status of anything they want." "Chairman," Helen said gently, "I do not think they want anything from us. I think they are done with us entirely." The chamber fell silent again. The idea was too terrible to accept. The Galactic Council had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. They had never failed. They had never lost control. They had never been helpless until now. On the 6th day of continuous emergency sessions, a message arrived. It appeared simultaneously on every screen, every display, every communication device in Council space. The message was simple. "Ambassador John Mitchell will arrive at Station Harmony in 7 days. He will speak for humanity. Listen carefully because he will not repeat himself." The Council had 7 days to prepare. 7 days to decide what to say, what to offer, what to beg for. 7 days to face judgment. The 7 days passed slowly. The Council prepared speeches, offers, and arguments. They practiced apologies and drafted treaties. They argued about who should speak and what should be said. Chairman Clickchar barely slept. He spent his nights reviewing everything he had said to John Mitchell over the years. Every dismissal, every interruption, every casual insult, they added up to a mountain of shame. On the 4th day, he recorded a personal message. He did not ask the Council's permission. He simply spoke from his office, alone, with no aides or advisors. "Ambassador Mitchell, this is Chairman Clickchar. I speak not as chairman, but as one being to another. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We took your people for granted. We dismissed your concerns. We disrespected your achievements. We treated you as servants when you deserved to be treated as equals. I do not ask for forgiveness because I know we do not deserve it. I ask only for the chance to make things right. Please talk to us." He sent the message on every frequency. He made sure it played on every screen in Council space. Within hours, billions of beings had seen their proud chairman admit he was wrong. Some Council members were angry that he had apologized without their approval. Others were relieved someone had finally said what needed saying. But everyone watched the message and wondered if it would make any difference. The message went out to Earth. There was no response. Senator Helen Cross spent the 7 days talking to other species. She wanted to understand the full extent of the damage. What she found was worse than she had imagined. The Kentari were dying by the thousands each day. Their government was close to collapse. Riots had broken out in 3 major cities as people demanded help that was not coming. The Lumini energy crisis was spreading. 5 stations had already gone dark. The beings there had simply faded away, unable to maintain their form without energy. It was not death exactly, but it was close enough. The Grothan mining worlds were evacuating. Without working safety systems, the mines were too dangerous to operate. Entire colonies were being abandoned. The metals and minerals that hundreds of species depended on were no longer being extracted. 17 different species reported food shortages. Agricultural worlds could not produce enough without human genetic expertise. Transport networks could not deliver what little food was available. People were hungry. Soon they would be starving, and there were smaller disasters too. A school on one world could not open because the humans had maintained the translation system, and now nobody could communicate. A hospital on another world had to close entire wings because medical equipment stopped working. A power plant that provided energy for 5 billion beings had shut down because nobody understood the human-designed control system. Helen compiled it all into one massive report. She titled it, "The Cost of Pride." When she showed it to the Council, many representatives left the chamber. They could not bear to see what their arrogance had caused. On the 7th day, John Mitchell's ship appeared at the edge of Council space. It was a small diplomatic vessel traveling alone, no escorts, no weapons, just one man coming to say whatever he planned to say. Station Harmony prepared for his arrival. The grand meeting chamber was cleaned and decorated. Every representative took their seat. Guards stood at attention. Cameras recorded everything for the historical record. The small ship docked. John Mitchell walked through the airlock and down the corridor. Station workers stopped to watch him pass. Some whispered, some stared. Nobody spoke to him. He walked into the meeting chamber exactly on time. He wore the same simple black suit he had always worn. His hair had more gray in it now. The lines on his face were deeper. But his eyes were clear and certain. He carried nothing. No data pads, no notes, no prepared speech. He simply walked to the center of the chamber where speakers traditionally stood. He looked slowly around at every representative present. The silence was complete. "I will not waste time with pleasantries," John began. His voice was calm, but it carried to every corner of the vast space. "Humanity is not returning to the Council. That decision is final. It is not open to negotiation. I am here only to explain why, and to tell you what happens next." Klikchar started to speak, but John held up one hand. The chairman fell silent. "For 200 years, humanity contributed to Council space. We gave our knowledge, our labor, our lives. We asked for very little in return. We asked only to be treated with basic respect and dignity. We were denied even that." John's voice remained level, but each word fell like a stone into still water. "When we needed help, you ignored us. When we achieved breakthroughs, you took credit. When we spoke, you did not listen. You treated us like children who should be grateful for your attention. You treated us like servants who should be happy with whatever scraps you threw our way." A council member started to protest, but John's look stopped him. "You believed humans were lesser beings, primitive, derivative. You convinced yourselves that you were superior, that you were teaching us, that we needed you." He paused. "The truth is exactly opposite. You needed us desperately, and you never realized it until we were gone." Senator Helen Cross spoke carefully. "Ambassador Mitchell, we acknowledge our failures. We are willing to make reparations. We will restructure the Council. We will give humanity equal representation and full authority. We will write new treaties that respect your contributions. Please reconsider." "No." The single word echoed through the chamber. "But our people are dying," Helen continued. "The Kantari plague, the Lumini energy crisis, the infrastructure failures. Surely you do not want innocent beings to suffer." For the first time, something like anger flashed in John's eyes. "Do I want innocent beings to suffer? I watched human colonies suffer for 15 years while you did nothing. I watched human children die from diseases while you denied our requests for supplies. I watched human merchants attacked by pirates while you called it an internal matter. Do not lecture me about innocent suffering." The chamber was silent. Helen lowered her head. Commander Zethral stood up. The warrior was trying to maintain his dignity, but his voice shook. "What about honor? What about duty? You joined the Council by treaty. You swore oaths." "We fulfilled every oath," John replied. "We followed every law. We completed every obligation. Then we legally dissolved our membership using the procedures outlined in your own treaty documents. We did everything correctly. We did everything by your rules. But your timing, your method, it was designed to hurt us." "Yes." John did not deny it. "For 200 years you hurt us casually without thought because we did not matter to you. We hurt you once, deliberately, to teach you that we do matter. To teach you that actions have consequences. To teach you that respect is not optional." He turned in a slow circle, looking at every face. "You could have had partners. You could have had friends. You could have had a species that would work beside you to make the galaxy better. Instead, you demanded servants. You demanded that we be grateful for your contempt. So now you have nothing. Please." Klikchar's voice was small. "Tell us what we can do. Tell us how to make this right." "You cannot make it right," John said simply. "You can only learn from it. Humanity is done with the Council. That will not change, but we are not done with the galaxy." He pulled out a data pad. The first one he had carried into the chamber. Any species, any world, any individual can approach humanity directly for assistance. They do not need Council permission. They do not need Council approval. They can come to us, and we will help them if we choose to, on our terms, as equals. The implications rippled through the chamber like an earthquake. You cannot undermine council authority like this. Click-Char protested weakly. Watch us. John's voice was steel, wrapped in velvet. In fact, we have already begun. Dr. Lisa Morgan returned to the Kentari homeworld 3 days ago. She is distributing the new cure for the bleeding death free of charge. Human medical teams are setting up facilities on 19 plague worlds. Human engineers are repairing infrastructure across 43 systems. Human merchants are establishing direct trade agreements with any species that wants them. He smiled, but it was not a warm smile. We are doing everything we did before, but now we answer only to ourselves and to the species we choose to help. We will not ask your permission. We will not report to your committees. We will not submit to your oversight. You wanted us gone, so we left. But we took our principles with us, and anyone who wants to work with us directly is welcome to do so. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions, demands, protests. But John Mitchell simply turned and walked toward the exit. Before he left, he stopped and looked back one final time. The council will survive. You will continue to pass your laws and hold your sessions and pretend you matter, but you will do it without us, and without any species that chooses humanity over you. The door closed behind him with a soft sound. Final. Complete. Click-Char sat in his chair, the weight of failure crushing down on him. Around him, representatives argued and blamed and schemed. But they all knew the truth. The council had ruled this part of space for 3,000 years. They had been the center of civilization, the source of all authority, the final word on all matters. Now they were just one option among many, and most species were choosing the other option. The changes came quickly after John Mitchell left. Within a week, everything was different. Director Blue stood at the spaceport on the Kentari homeworld, watching the human ships land. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked down the ramp of the first vessel, carrying her equipment cases. Behind her came 20 more human doctors and scientists. Dr. Morgan, Director Blue said, his voice breaking. You came back. Of course I came back. Lisa set down her cases and looked at him. Your people are dying. That was never acceptable to me. The council taking credit for my work. That was about the council. This is about saving lives. The council said you would not help anyone anymore. The council does not speak for us. Lisa gestured to her team. We are here because we choose to be here. Because you asked us directly and we said yes. No council approval needed. No paperwork. No committees. Just you asking and us answering. Over the next month, the Kentari plague was controlled again. Lisa's team did not just treat the current outbreak. They trained Kentari scientists. They shared their research methods. They explained how they thought about problems and solved them. Why are you teaching us all this? Director Blue asked. Is this not valuable knowledge? Knowledge is only valuable if it is used, Lisa replied. We are not trying to keep you dependent on us. We are trying to make you independent. That is what partners do. The Kentari government made a decision. They formally withdrew from the Galactic Council. They declared humanity their closest allies. They closed their council embassy and opened a new one on Earth. They were the first species to choose humanity over the council. They would not be the last. On the Lumini energy stations, human engineers worked alongside glowing energy beings to fix the crystal supply chain. Captain Danny Chen and his cargo ship Lucky Dragon made the dangerous journey into the deep nebula, something he had done hundreds of times before. Other human merchants followed. Why did you come back? Bright Morning asked him when he delivered the first crystal shipment. The council dismissed your concerns when you asked for better protection on this route. I did not come back for the council, Danny said. I came back for you. Your people were always fair to me. You paid on time. You treated my crew with respect. So when you contacted Earth directly and asked for help, I volunteered. But the danger, the radiation, the navigation hazards. Still there, Danny agreed. But now I am being paid fairly for the risk. And I am working for people who appreciate the work. That makes all the difference. The Lumini also withdrew from the council. Their ships, their stations, their energy networks all declared independence. They formed a direct partnership with humanity. 2 species gone. The council tried not to panic. On Station Harmony, the infrastructure continued to fail. Chief Engineer Solid Worker and his team struggled with systems they did not fully understand. People died when life support failed. Ships were damaged when the docking systems malfunctioned. The station that had been the pride of the Council was slowly falling apart. Then a message arrived from Earth. A simple offer. Human engineers are willing to help repair Station Harmony. Not as Council members, as independent contractors. You will pay fair wages. You will provide safe working conditions. You will treat our people with respect. If you agree to these terms, send a response. The Council debated for 3 days. Some members thought it was beneath their dignity to hire humans like common workers. Others pointed out that the alternative was watching the station collapse. Clickchar made the decision. Send the acceptance. Agree to all their terms. 20 human engineers arrived the following week. They worked 12-hour days, fixing critical systems, training Council engineers, writing clear documentation in simple language. They did not socialize with Council members. They did not attend diplomatic functions. They did their jobs and went back to their quarters, but they did their jobs well. Within a month, the most critical failures were repaired. Within 3 months, the station was stable again. The Council tried to thank them with a formal ceremony. The humans declined. We did not do this for recognition, the team leader said. His name was Paul Grant. We did this because we were paid to do a job. The job is done. Now we are leaving. But there is more work to be done, Solid Worker protested. We need you to stay. Then hire us again. Send another contract. We will consider it. Paul picked up his tools. Or better yet, use the documentation we wrote. We explained how everything works. Learn to fix your own systems. They left. The Council was left with manuals written in clear, simple language that even junior engineers could understand. The humans had not just fixed the problems. They had taught the Council how to fix them in the future. It was more respect than the Council had ever shown humanity. Over the following year, 17 species withdrew from the Galactic Council. Each one contacted Earth directly. Each one formed independent partnerships with humanity. The Council's Grand Chamber, which had once held representatives from 47 species, now held only 30. Trade networks reorganized around human coordination. Medical care improved as human doctors shared their knowledge freely. Infrastructure across hundreds of worlds was upgraded with human assistance. But humanity did not rebuild the Council under a different name. They did not create a human empire. They did not demand tribute or obedience. Instead, they built something new. A network of equal partnerships. Species working together because they chose to, not because they were forced to. Problems solved through cooperation, not bureaucracy. Help given freely to those who asked respectfully. It was not perfect. There were disputes and disagreements. But they were handled as equals talking to equals, not masters instructing servants. Senator Helen Cross wrote a final report about the human departure and its consequences. She titled it, "The Price of Arrogance." In it, she documented everything that had happened. Every failure, every loss, every lesson learned too late. She ended the report with a simple observation. We had 200 years to learn that humans were our equals. We spent that time convincing ourselves they were beneath us. By the time we learned the truth, they were gone. The Council will survive, but we will never be what we once were. We built our civilization on the backs of beings we did not respect. When they left, we fell. This is what we deserved. The only question now is whether we will learn from it. Her report became required reading in Council schools. A warning to future generations. A reminder that respect cannot be demanded, only earned. And that those who give much should receive at least basic dignity in return. John Mitchell never returned to Station Harmony. He lived out his remaining years on Earth, working as an advisor to the new Human Diplomatic Corps. Young diplomats came to him for guidance on dealing with alien species. His advice was always the same. Listen more than you talk. Respect others even when they do not respect you. Help those who ask sincerely. And never ever let anyone convince you that you are less than you are. When he died at the age of 87, representatives from 43 species attended his funeral. Not the species still in the Council, the species that had chosen humanity over the Council. They came to honor the man who had taught the galaxy a hard lesson about respect. Claire Hughes, his former assistant, gave the eulogy. She was the human ambassador to the Kantari by then, a position of great honor. John Mitchell did not set out to destroy the Galactic Council, she said. He set out to make them listen. When they would not listen, he made them feel what it was like to be ignored, to be dismissed, to be taken for granted. Some call that revenge. I call it education. She looked at the assembled mourners. Beings of light and scales and feathers and forms humans had no names for, all gathered to honor one quiet man in a black suit. He taught us that silence can be louder than any speech, that leaving can be more powerful than staying, that sometimes the best way to make people see you is to make them see what life is like without you. The funeral ended. The representatives went home to their worlds. The council continued its sessions in their half-empty chamber. And humanity continued building their network of partnerships, one respectful relationship at a time. 50 years later, the Galactic Council was still holding sessions, but their authority was limited to the 30 species that remained. They passed laws that only they followed. They made decisions that only they cared about. They maintained the illusion of power while the real work of civilization happened elsewhere. In space that had once been called Council Space, humans and their partners built something better. Not perfect, not utopian, just better. A galaxy where species worked together as equals, where problems were solved through cooperation, where respect was the foundation of every relationship. And on Earth, in the archives, John Mitchell's final report was preserved. The report he had written before sending that 3-word message, Begin Phase 1. The report was titled, What We Could Have Been. In it, he had outlined his vision for the Council. A place where all species were truly equal, where contributions were recognized and respected, where help was given freely to those who needed it, where dignity was not something to be earned but something every being deserved from the moment they joined. It was the council he had hoped to build. The council he had worked toward for 15 years. The council that could have been, if only they had